Hey everybody, this is Mike. Welcome back to my shop and welcome back to my channel, Z Motorsports. Today we are going to be changing an EGR valve out on the Jeep Wrangler 3.8 liter V6. So this will cover pretty much all of them from 07 to 11. So if you're getting a P0404, P0405, and possibly P0406, after you check the connections, after you check all your wiring and everything, the obvious, there's a good, very good probability that it's an EGR valve. The EGR valves on these, they use the sensor inside. It has a position sensor in there as well. And you can get, I've had them go two ways. I've had them get to where they'll come up to an idle and they'll start stumbling and coughing and sputtering even before the check engine, before you can get a check engine light. And that's because that EGR hasn't slammed closed far enough. There's a little piece of carbon or something built up in there. And so it's basically an air leak at that point, an intake leak. So I'm also having to where they will intermittently, the sensor will not be in the position that the computer, the PCM, thinks it's in. And usually that's a P0404 code. But like I said, I've had them go different ways. For some reason, this 3.8 Mopar engine and this vintage of Jeeps, they have a tendency to burn a little oil when they start getting some miles on them. Anybody who has one, I'm sure you already know that. You've probably gone all over the forums and seen them. Some burn more than others. I think in the factory service manual, I think they actually state they don't consider it high oil consumption until it's a quart in 1,000 miles, which in my opinion is a lot of oil. But my Jeep doesn't really burn that much. I'll go through maybe a half a quart in 3,000 miles, maybe 2,700, somewhere around that, right in that range. I'll use maybe, half a quart. It's been pretty good. It's got 76,000 miles on it. And I got an intermittent P0404 code. I'll check all my wiring and whatnot on it. And I think it's time to change the EGR valve. So anyway, it's a pretty straightforward job. There's a couple of ways. You look at the book tells you to go down through the top, pull the intake plenum and your EGR tube that comes off the back and up into the intake plenum. You can do that. The way I do it is actually easier, so that's kind of why I want to show it. You pull the front tire off, you pull your inner fender, and it's basically right there in the back of the right bank cylinder head. It's not easy to get to because the bolts are technically behind it against the firewall. If you have a manual transmission, it's a little easier. You can put a shallow socket on a 1/4-inch drive. I think it's a 10 millimeter on that, and it'll come right loose. If you have an automatic, such as I do, it's a little more troublesome just because you have your dipstick tube that runs down there. Now there's two ways you can do that. You can either unbolt your dipstick tube and pull it all the way out and then try to fight to get it back in, which that's one way of doing it. Or you can take a pry bar very slightly on the back of the cylinder head and move the dipstick tube. It only has to move about 5/8 of an inch or so, and it's just a slight little moving that to basically towards the inside and towards the middle of the Jeep, and it'll free up the space to get that bolt. And even then, that bolt's not easy to get to because you're basically, here's your dipstick tube, you're reaching around the back side of it to get to it, but it's doable. I have found there's I found a couple different variations on wiring harnesses on these. You would think that this would be a standard wiring harness, which I'm sure the wiring harness probably is standard, but I've seen them to where there's different retainers, and some of them you cannot get enough slack in that wire loom to pull it out the side, and so it has to be accessed through the top. Those are a pain in the butt, to be honest with you. So there's a little red locking tab you have to remove, and then push in on the detent on the clip, and then pull the plug out, the weather pack connector out. If you have to do it from the top, they are cumbersome to do. They're a pain. The last couple I've done, I've been able to pull them out and get just enough. So there's not a lot of slack there, but there's enough where you can pull it, turn it around the side of the cylinder head, and pull the wiring connector loose and everything. And then when you go to put the new one back in, keep the connection up first, then put it back in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and get the Jeep up in the air. There's these plastic rivets here, and I can actually give you part numbers. While I'm thinking about it, I'll give you part numbers for these. So the plastic rivets are a NAPA part number, ball camp number is a 665-2840. And then there's a couple little push-in tabs on these. I keep some on hand. Usually these ones are reusable, but they're not. Sometimes they get brittle and break, so I keep some on hand. And this is the ball camp number, also NAPA, 665-1125. The actual EGR valve itself, I've been having really good luck with the NAPA ones, and it's a part number 2-26809. And it'll come with your gasket and everything in there. Like I said, I've had pretty decent luck with these. So there's your EGR valve. It's a 5-pin connector, so it's got your sensor and everything, position sensor for EGR, everything inside. And it also is your steel gasket for the back of the cylinder head, and then this steel composite gasket on the side that is for the tube that comes from there up to the intake plan. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get this up in the air, and then we'll start tearing things apart. So what you're going to have is you're going to end up having 6 of these rivets you have to drill out, and then about 4 or 5 of these pop-in pins. So I just usually take and drill the heads off of these. Sometimes the heads will pop off like that. And then what you do is if the head doesn't pop all the way off and you drill the center out, you just take like a 1/2 inch chisel, nice smooth one, get underneath it and pop the head right off. Then take a punch and just go up into each one and make sure you push the other half out. I kind of like to do it before I pull the fender. So push everything out the other side. Then grab your tool, a couple variations of your tools to pull the other clips. So you just kind of go in and pull the rest of the clips like that. That's it there. You got another one over here. You have a little tab over here you have to release. And I think that you just have this one 10mm headed bolt, which actually goes up under the battery tray. Oh, and this one push pin. There's another push pin. And the inner fender's out. Okay, and here's what you're after. Move the little ground strap out of the way there. So you got your 2 bolts here. These are taking 8mm socket, and this pulls this tube off. Then you've got a 10mm bolt here, and right up behind, there's your dipstick tube. I was telling you, you kind of take and pry out of the way. And then right up here is another one, another 10mm, and then it's off, and then the electrical connector's on the other side. So I'm going to try to go ahead and pull that out with the camera here, and hopefully I won't block it too much. You can see what I'm doing. Sometimes you need a variety of wrenches on that 10mm bolt in the back. So I've got a short stubby ratchet. I've got my standard one that I usually try to break them loose with. And then on that back one, sometimes you just need a regular stubby, and you almost have to get on it one flat at a time and turn it until you can get 2 fingers up and walk that one bolt out. So let's go ahead and pull the EGR tube out of the way. Okay, gaskets out. And these two, I believe these are like 6mm bolts, like I say, with 8mm heads on them. And reach up here and pull that. Now another little trick on this top bolt. This is the bottom bolt I'm undoing right now. But once you get this bottom bolt out, because these things can be tight, as you witnessed, that one there was pretty tight. So one little trick you can do, take this bottom bolt all the way out, then go ahead and get a wrench on that back one. And as you, and I'm going to move the camera to do this, but as you put your wrench on that top bolt and are turning, rotate the EGR valve. There's a lot of surface area on the underside of the head of that bolt because it's a flange. You can see it's a flanged bolt. There's a lot of surface area underneath there that holds on to that. So while you're turning the wrench, if you can turn the EGR valve counterclockwise so the top goes into the center of the vehicle, it'll actually help break that bolt loose. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to move this camera back a little bit because I keep kicking it. So I'll undo that back one. Push the top of that EGR valve as I was pulling on the wrench, and it broke it right loose. There we go. Sometimes if you hold your tongue just right and you squint just right, it actually helps your fingers work right. So there's steel gasket and last bolt. Sometimes you can grab like a cotter pin like that and reach up and push on the detent while you pull on it, and sometimes you can pop them off. Get the release. There we go. That's the sweet note you're after right there. And it's a little carboned up. You kind of see down in. Not too bad though. It's light brown. It's not completely black. So I don't know why this one was acting up. Even on the outlet side, it's not looking that bad. So maybe this one wasn't carboned up. Maybe this one was actually a sensor issue that was starting to go south. So either way, that's what you're after. Okay, reassembly is just going to be the opposite, of course. Best thing I've found to do on this is to get a long pair of angled needle nose and reach up and on the back side and grab hold of the back of the plug. Try not to grab the wires, and grab the back of the plug, and then you can kind of reach around and redirect and push the plug on, and then you put your lock tab in. Then you basically reach up in and slowly twist the bolt head, or the head of the bolt in to get it started, and then you can go back to your stubby ratchet and thread it back in, then kick the gasket over and do the short bolt. So the long bolt goes on the top and the short bolt goes on the bottom. And I obviously have a cross. There we go. A little kink going there on the gasket. So then once you get that done, you put your lower bolt in, bolt that in on your tube, and you're good to go. An easy reach in your tools. Okay, I just discovered a new way to put that plug back in and get it to it, because it's quite, you got to compress that little rubber seal around in there until you hear the audible click. In the past, as I said, I usually just reached around and grabbed the plug and then come get your fingers up there and try to squeeze it together. But if you have an automatic transmission, use that dipstick to your advantage and take here's your tube, take the plug on the side, push it against there, and then you can grab around with the back of the dipstick tube with these two fingers, put the EGR valve in the palm of your hand there and squeeze. So basically you're pushing against, or you're using the dipstick tube to kind of squeeze that all together until you hear that audible click. And actually with it being against the dipstick tube and your fingers wrapped around that, you can actually feel the click as the connector lock snaps into place. So there's another tip for you. Okay, so now once you get that top bolt started, you get your shorter bolt. I usually like to put a little anti-seize on them, so not if, but when you do this the next time, it'll be much easier. And go ahead and make sure you're through your gasket. That's key. Make sure your gasket, because if it drops down, you can miss your gasket with your bolt. So, yep, we're through it. So thread that one in, and then alternate top to bottom, so you make sure you kind of pull it in evenly. Bottom was, I was able to thread the top one in fairly good distance by just my fingers, but then it got to the point where I couldn't, so I put the bottom one in. Now I'll go back. It's just a little stubby ratchet on the little offset wrench. Works good. Never fails. You need to have a full arsenal of wrenches available. So, and when you use it on that back side, it's got to step down around the bulbous back side. You just have to move your EGR plug very slightly out of the way so you can clear it enough to get enough throw on the wrench. So you push down a little ways and then just kind of reach down, move that plug out of that connector out of the way, and then you can get enough of a throw on the wrench to go grab another bite. Okay. EGR valve is in place. New gasket in place here. Get that ready. Okay, EGR valve is complete. You'll need a plastic rivet tool. I like the Marson ones, the rivet setter. But any of them will work. As long as they put the rivets in and pop the heads off, that's all you care about. So we're putting this up in, tuck this back area in first. It seems to aid a little bit going forward. Kind of pull the flare out a little bit, put it in, and then there's a little tab right here, right behind your turn signal, your marker light. Snap that little tab in, and then that kind of helps hold things in place while you get the others. Then the other one, the first one I want to put in is this screw that is cat bolt goes up in, and what it is it's just a nut that's threaded internally, and there's a stud that sticks down from your battery tray. So that just goes up into it. I like to put that one in first. Get that one in, and I'll put a couple of push pins in. Then wind up, put push pins in, and they're just that, they just push in. One solo, make sure your push pins are in. Looks like there's 6 of them as well, and then 6 rivets. So I'll take my chisel and kind of line up your holes a little bit on your inner fender. Make sure everything's lined up good. Plastic rivet gun, plastic rivet. Make sure it's lined up properly. Simple as that. 6 of them to run around the fender. That's all that's happening. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, I want to appreciate everybody taking the time to watch the video. If you like this, like it, subscribe to my channel. Appreciate all of my viewers, and thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.